Hi, welcome back. You now have your detect resistance exercise. What better place to work on that than my winter home here in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico? So, first of all, I'd like you to read through the exercise. In your supplementary material, you'll see roles of the various players in the FinCo case study, Sarah and Frank and Mary and a number of others. Each of those have characters, and they're labeled as active support, active resistance, passive support, or passive resistance. You remember from the text that active support and active resistance are probably pretty easy to detect when someone actively supports. There's lots of positive affirmations, lots of encouragement, eager to participate, participates early and often. Similarly with active resistance, you tend to have very overt expressions of resistance. Over my dead body, are you going to get away with this, etc. Easy to figure out active support and active resistance. If you read carefully through passive support and passive resistance, you see that they look an awful lot alike. They tend not to speak very strongly. They would use very tactful, careful, neutral type language. And the reason that support or resistance is sometimes passive, there is a variety of things, as you read in the student text. They're a little intimidated. They're not sure. Someone higher up the chain actively supports and they're not so sure. That's the situation with Sarah and Frank, you'll read in the roles. And so it's important for us to figure out who's passively supporting, who's passively resisting, and why. If you knew the why, then you could do something about it. Now, how does one detect resistance? You saw the slide in the student text that gave some ideas. Balancing participation, using a safe process, actively listening, using probing, tactful questions to draw out participants that are not so overt about their feelings about the project. We'll, in the next lesson, talk about facilitation and some structured techniques for doing that. But for the moment, I want you to read through and ask the following questions. It's the first two tasks from Detect Resistance. One is to figure out how that character might display the active support or active resistance, passive support or passive resistance. So just think about it. If you were passive support, are you going to speak early or are you going to hold back? Are you going to be neutral in your language or are you going to be very assertive? And so on. Who speaks first? How do they speak? When do they respond? What questions do they ask? And so on. It is part of growing your skill at detecting where people sit in the organization. It's easy for us to allow the active support and active resistance to play out some kind of debate in a meeting and forget about the others. But there is a real challenge if you ignore passive supporters and passive resistors. The passive supporters can become active supporters. The passive resistors could throw a grenade into your presentation to gain commitment later on because of their misgivings. One of the ways we differentiate ourselves as business architects is to be able to detect that resistance. You're going to be unable to do the role play, which involves 7 characters, but I'm going to suggest that at your next couple of meetings, you take some time and sit back, watch what's going on, practice the techniques that are given in the text about probing the silent ones, asking tactful questions and so on, and see if you can determine where they sit and why. To verify your results, you might follow up with them individually. So I'm going to leave that with you. That will conclude this lesson. And once you've done that and you're ready, we'll go on with facilitation in the stakeholder community.